Get started. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Maya.
Good morning.
We're starting a new
Morning.
chapter 43. We welcome a new student today, Ina Raskin. Too bad Mitzvah is not here, because if you know Mitzvah in Shul, what's the first question he asks when somebody walks into Shul?
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Very good, Larry.
The famous question.
The famous question: which one came first, the chicken or the egg? And we have a similar problem here. There's a contradiction in Torah. One place it says that without wisdom there is no fear. Another place says that without fear there is no wisdom. So which one comes first, wisdom or fear?
Fear.
Fear? Which one comes first?
Wisdom.
Depends what fear you're talking about. Fear of unknown, fear of God. What fear?
Fear of God.
Fear of God comes first.
But in another place,
No, you need to have a knowledge. Yes, you need wisdom. Right. You need wisdom.
So which one is it? All right, Luba, good morning. Pat, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. We're in the middle of a quandrum. Which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? No.
Love.
Love.
Experience comes first.
Experience. So we said there's two contradictions. The contradiction in Torah. One place says that without wisdom there's no fear. Another place says without fear there is no wisdom. And in Torah there can never be a contradiction, because Torah is God's wisdom, and in God's wisdom there cannot be a contradiction. So there got to be an explanation to it. In Yiddish, whenever we learn a piece of Torah, we have a question like this. So unless there's a debate in Talmud, which is another discussion, we would say in Yiddish, as wenn sich woman redt, which means it depends what we're talking about. So we're going to do this chapter is going to say there's two types of fear. There's a lower fear, a lower level of fear, and there's a higher level of fear. So just in a nutshell, the answer is going to be, first comes the lower fear, which brings us to proper wisdom, and that wisdom will elevate us to a higher level of fear. As Mitzvah would say, the answer is both. They both came together. We learned in the last chapter, the very long chapter of 42, that in order to create a real fear of God and a real love for Hashem, we got to utilize the faculty of das. Das is contemplation. Das is to connect to an idea, to think and meditate about godliness in a way that it becomes part of us. And we get the assistance from Moshe Rabbeinu, from Moshe's soul, that continues to live on in every generation. And that brings us hopefully to the idea to have stronger love and fear of Hashem. And we utilize certain meditations on a very basic level to contemplate. At the end, we talked about contemplating about nature. That if we meditate and think and look out at nature and recognize Hashem is the creator of the universe, that invokes in us an honest, such a grandeur and honest of Hashem's presence that translates into us fearing and loving Hashem. With that, we're going to start in chapter 43. It's going to go a little bit deeper into these two types of fear. And by the way, again, when I say the word fear, it's more like awe. Fear is, in a sense, not a healthy emotion, but standing in the awe of Hashem is actually something that is very uplifting, and it makes us more humble, understanding when we contemplate that idea. Let's get into the reading on page 548, chapter 43, the full spectrum of reverence and love. Section 1, expanded and contracted, and a contracted mind. In chapter 43, continues to Tanya, the practical guide to generate emotions for God, which began chapter 41 and will continue to the end of chapter 50. In chapter 41, we were given an instruction to the importance of reverence and love and how to achieve them at a basic level. Chapter 42 elaborate further on the ideas and techniques to generate reverence. So obviously, reverence and love can occur at different levels. What is our register to calibrate these different levels? Our previous discussion have guided us mainly to recognize basic and lower forms of reverence and love. In this chapter, we will explore the higher forms of these emotions and clarify exactly what distinguishes them from their lower counterparts. And first, we will turn our attention to reverence. In the second half of the chapter, we will address love, because in a sense, reverence and love, they go hand in hand. In order, if you have proper reverence of Hashem, that will also increase and invoke a proper love for Hashem. Because as we talk, it's all about attachment. Attachment, the reverence leads to a proper attachment. Reverence is not, I want to run away from it, but I'm standing in this great presence of Hashem, which creates the reverence and fear of Hashem, but gives me the intense love that I have for Hashem. And similar, there is lower level and higher level, and lower of fear and lower level love, higher level love. I'm going to give quick a intro in what's the lower level and higher level. So as we read, because it's going to go more in detail, we have our already the definitions more or less. We already learned that, so it's nothing really new. Lower level of fear or reverence, which always comes first, like we said in chapter 41, it starts with accepting Hashem's authority, Kabbalat all, which we really do first thing in the morning. We wake up in the morning, we say, Moda Ani, thank you Hashem for giving me back a soul. It's the meditation that I am accepting Hashem's authority. I'm in Hashem's world and I'm accepting Hashem's authority. And that automatically puts me in a place where I'm afraid to do anything goes against Hashem's will. So we don't want to get into trouble, so to speak, with God's directive. I follow the commandments, and I also make sure not to violate any of the commandments. That is the base of the starting point. Which now, when I start my day with that Kabbalah's all accepting of Hashem's yoke, it makes me feel less. It makes me feel a little bit smaller. It's like an inspection, right? When you have an inspection coming into your house, you get afraid, right? You get afraid, and your ego shrinks because you're under the eyes of the inspector.
Auditor.
Huh? The auditor, very good. The IRS is coming back. Now that you feel a bit less of yourself, it's, again, remember, that's just a lower level of reverence, because in a sense, we learned earlier, it's a little self-oriented. It's not so much about Hashem, it's more about me. I don't want to get caught. I don't want to get into trouble. So it's a little ego-driven as well. It's, I don't want to get into trouble. I know the big boss is around. I got to behave. Which is not a problem, but that's not where we want to get to. Which leads us to now, I want to have a real relationship, so I'm going to start to pray and to study Torah. So when I start to study and praying, I'm going to utilize Das. Das is to use my mind to connect to Hashem, to connect to the ideas of Hashem, to the wisdom of Hashem. So that's where fear leads to wisdom, proper wisdom, real wisdom, wisdom where my ego is not in the way. In order for me to go and absorb the information and that it should be genuine, it should be real, I gotta be prepared to put my presence on the side and give myself into the territory of Hashem. So that has led me from the lower reverence to wisdom, which is Chachma and Das. And then what comes next is now through my learning, through my meditation, I can come to a higher level of fear, of reverence. And now I realize how great and how awesome Hashem is. And the fact that I'm in his presence and I can be standing, it's like standing in the presence of a king, right? There's a certain awe that you're standing in such a high presence that makes you really feel like nothing, but not in a negative way. It's not about you anymore. You feel great that you can be standing in this place of greatness. I am completely nullified. So that is another sequence from fear to wisdom, the wisdom to proper fear, to proper reverence. And similar goes with the love. Right? So we have there's lower love and there's higher love. Lower love is things that I enjoy. Right? It's like a child. A child has those squeaky toys, right? The toys that a child loves and enjoys. And when you take away the toys, what happens? The child cries, throws a tantrum, you give it back, stops the crying. So there's the love aspect that's always there, right? The child loves the toys. It is now as we grow older, we throw away those toys and we substitute those toys for bigger toys or adult toys, right? Like cars and other physical things that give us pleasure, so to speak. I'm just giving an analogy to lower level love. These are love that are self-oriented. It's all about me. I want to fulfill my ego because it gives me pleasure. I enjoy this toy because it gives me pleasure. Not negative, it's self-oriented. So similar, I can be in a relationship with Hashem. Why do I love Hashem? Because Hashem gives me good toys. Hashem gives me health. Hashem gives me livelihood. Hashem gave me a good, beautiful family. And I'm grateful. And I love Hashem for that, right? Which is important. We say Baruch Hashem. It's not a bad thing, it's a very good thing. It's an important thing. We gotta recognize, express how much we love Hashem. Right after the Shema, we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hear, O Israel, which is really the sequence. And later on, I'll show you the Siddur, how it really goes from lower level to higher level in the actual Hebrew. But we say Shema, which is the meditation, which is Das, right? Close our eyes, meditate. And this, which brings me to Ve'ahavta, and you shall love Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. So there's different levels of love, loving with all your heart, soul, might, which we're going to go into as well. But I'm moving now from my love that I enjoy, the things I'm getting out of Hashem, because again, it's about me, what Hashem is giving me, to a point where I'm going that through this process of understanding who Hashem is, through the wisdom that I'm acquiring, because I'm in the morning, I say, thank you, Hashem, for giving me a soul. I'm so grateful. And now I'm going to study more about you. I'm going to learn more Torah. I'm going to daven. I'm going to pray. And now I come to a higher level of love, which is a selfless love, which is just a love of just pure love, which is completely not contingent on anything that I'm receiving. It's just being purely the fact that I'm in this relationship with Hashem. I love Hashem, no matter what I have, even if I have nothing. So now it's a much stronger love. It's it's much more of an unconditional love. That's called Ava Rabba. So in our process, in our journey, this is not a life journey necessarily. This can be a day-to-day activity. You start from the lower, you go to the higher, and you want to advance in your spiritual journey to go from the lower level of fear and love to the high level of fear and love, which is true, which is much more of a strong relationship. All right, so let's continue a little bit inside. Clear on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. First, we will turn our attention to reverence. In the second half of the chapter, we will address love. Now, regarding this lower reverence, which we have been discussing in chapter 41, 42, which we have defined as any reverence that directly inspires the observance of God's mitzvahs, both prohibitions and positive commands, to turn away from evil and do good. Regarding this low reverence, our sages said, if there's no reverence, there is no wisdom. We learned in chapter 23, the notion of both a lower reverence, which leads to observance of Torah, and a higher reverence, which results from Torah observance, is suggested by the Mishnah's teaching, if there's no reverence, there's no wisdom. And if there's no wisdom, there's no reverence. The Mishnah first statements, if there's no reverence, there's no wisdom, points to a lower level of reverence that inspires you to observe the Torah wisdom. The Mishnah's second statement, if there's no wisdom, Torah, there is no reverence, suggests the higher level of reverence, which comes after Torah observance. And within the category of lower reverence, there is a contracted frame of mind, an expanded one. Lower reverence from a contracted frame of mind is what we have been discussing throughout chapter 41, 42. Number one, the basic awareness that God is watching you. Two, deducing his presence by looking at the contents of the physical world as his garments. And three, the meditation before talis and tefillin, etc. And now the time to briefly describe lower reverence from an expanded frame of mind. Contracted frame of mind basically means where I kind of focus on one thing, right? Contracted frame of mind, I try to narrow on one thing, and from there, it brings me to a certain emotion of reverence. Right? I'm going to focus on God's presence here. I'm going to focusing on mitzvahs here. I'm focusing on this mitzvah, and that mitzvah brings me to a reverence. There's also, so it's a meditation that's very, very focused on something very specific, versus which he introduces now, what we call expanded frame of mind. What's expanded frame?
What page, please?
I'm 549. And about the third paragraph. Now the Tanya will briefly describe lower reverence from an expanded frame of mind, meaning to say that when this reverence is produced by meditating on God's greatness, is considered to be from an expanded frame of mind. The meditation, chapter 41 to 42, were from a contracted frame of mind because they didn't focus primarily on the greatness and awesomeness of God. They made you conscious that God is watching you, and that the physical world veils his presence. But there wasn't a lot of detail about the wondrous power of God himself. The focus on God's greatness is the hallmark of an expanded mind meditation. In an expanded mind meditation, you contemplate how he fills all the worlds. So in other words, the contracted mind thinks about you. That God is watching me. So it's again, it's my little part of it. Expanded means I'm thinking now not about me, but how great Hashem, the greatness and the awesomeness of Hashem. How he fills all the worlds, quotes from the Zohar. You ponder the awesomeness of God as expressed through the merits of spiritual world he has created. In a contracted frame of mind, the emphasis is on you, how God is watching you, and how you feel his presence. But in an expanded state of mind, the emphasis is on God, how he manifests his greatness in all the spiritual worlds. So again, it's almost like even though he's talking about lower reverence, but within lower reverence as well. If it's all about me, God is watching me. It's kind of the gun is in my head, right? So it's very narrow-minded, so to speak. Versus if I can elevate my meditation, not to be focusing that God is watching me. Of course, God's watching me, but much more than that, God is God's light, God's presence has filled the entire world. Meaning that in every little speck is God's presence, and God has a divine providence in every single thing you do, everything that happens in the world, that gives me wow that God is all powerful. That opens my mind to much bigger things. That opens my respect or my reverence to much greater than just me, little me. So the Tanya now cites a metaphorical description of the spiritual world found in the Talmud, which from the basis of an expanded mind meditation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going into some interesting journey, a Kabbalistic journey. Buckle up, because this is a little spiritual expanded mind meditation. We're going to read it through, and then we'll hopefully understand a bit. So, what is it? What's the meditation? Taken out of the Talmud, which is interesting because typically the Talmud doesn't give us Kabbalistic meditations. Talmud is very much the law and the debate about the law, not so much about spiritual things. However, the sages of the Talmud were, as much as they were geniuses and scholars in Jewish law, they were as much, if not more, also mystics. And that's, if you learn Talmud, you understand that and you can see that. And the idea is to actually put them together. So what does it say here? You contemplate that the journey from earth to heaven takes 500 years. And the thickness of the heaven is a journey of 500 years. And so too, between each heaven and the one above it, and above them are the holy angels, and the feet of the angels are equal to all of them together. The Talmud, however, contains relatively little discussion of the spiritual worlds, but say the Hishtalshalos, the chain of spiritual world, is discussed in great detail in the works of Kabbalah and Hasidus. So although it's talking about a physical journey, right? What will take? What's the journey from earth to heaven? If you had to walk it, so to speak, the Talmud calculates 500 years. Okay, 500 years. How many light years? All right, 500 years. 500 years, and the thickness of heaven in itself is 500 years. Between each heaven, there's another 500 years. So basically, it is the vast universe, as the Talmud is trying to describe it in the physical sense, and how much more so in the spiritual sense when it starts talking about angels. Continue. Again, it's not important now to understand this really on what that really means, but the idea is how they would meditate on the vastness and greatness of Hashem's universe, physical and spiritual. And an expanded mind meditation, page 550. An expanded mind meditation will also include meditating on the chain, Hishtalshalos, of spiritual worlds, extending up and beyond to the greatest heights. But as the Tanya will now explain, even this expanded mind meditation will still only produce a lower reverence. So I said earlier, we would think that this greater expansive meditation will translate in a higher reverence. The Tanya says, no, that still is considered lower reverence. Why? But the Tanya will explain why. Nevertheless, the reverence produced from this above mentioned meditation is still, quote unquote, a superficial and lower reverence, even though it's from an expanded state of mind. Why? It's superficial because it's inspired by the greatness of God as manifested through the created worlds, which are the mere garments of the King, the Blessed Holy One, who is found in them only in a hidden and concealed and garbed way, so as to energize them and sustain them, so that there should be something from nothing. However much your emotions might be stirred by these meditations, you're not actually getting excited about God himself, but rather, and this is the word, God's influence, the wondrous world that he has made. That's why it's termed a superficial reverence. And why do we even bother ourselves with low reverence if it's inferior and superficial? Only low reverence is important since it's the gateway and passage to the observance of Torah mitzvahs. And so what does that mean? In plain English, you can meditate about God's greatness and about the universe and God's greatness. Still, as we know, you're not even scratching the surface about God himself. You're becoming completely inspired or standing in reverence about God's creation, how God's power is in creation, right? You can go to the ocean, or I was in California last week and I took a hike on the mountains there, and it was beautiful, right? Beautiful. California has the nature is incredible, beautiful. So, and you say to yourself, how great Hashem's power in nature. But that is just how Hashem has invested his life to create a physical world, for us to recognize that there must be a creator, but we don't understand the creator. I can only recognize there must be somebody who created all this, who made this happen, and it makes it happen every single moment. So still, it's considered quote unquote superficial in where my meditation is taking me, even if it's expanded meditation, and still considered lower reverence. So what's the point of lower reverence? It is for me to be humble and recognize that it should inspire me to perform the mitzvot and to perform the instructions that the big creator has given me, because I recognize there is a creator, and that's beautiful. But that's still the lower level, which hopefully now this will lead to the higher level, which we haven't expanded yet, so to speak. So that's what he says. Emotional maturity follows a process. First, there must be a lower reverence, which will inspire Torah observance, and that opens up the further possibility of reaching higher reverence. You can skip levels because one builds on. You cannot skip levels because one builds on the other. So, what is the higher reverence? 550 in the bottom, section 2. How to attain higher reverence. Any questions on this? Moving on. Bella shaking yes and no.
No, I'm saying it requires further
Further
reading
explanation.
and yeah.
Okay, good. And this is really this is a good part here. This will give us a lot more appreciation of what high reverence is. Section 2, how to attain high reverence. But the higher reverence is a reverence which arising from a sense of shame in God's presence. See from Tikkun Azor. And it is a deep reverence, Chaim Vital, these are all Kabbalists, which results from an awareness not of the awesomeness of the spiritual worlds himself, but of the core godliness within the worlds. Again, not of the awesomeness of the spiritual world himself, but the core godliness within the worlds. What's the difference? Think of the difference between the way you're impressed by a powerful man and the way you're impressed by a holy man. There are two major distinctions. A powerful man impresses you because of what he can do. His influence. A holy man impresses you because of who he is, a higher caliber of a human being. 2, being in the presence of a powerful man doesn't really change you, but being in the presence of a holy man might deeply impact your life. Why? When you're impressed with a powerful man, you're not really revering him, but his influence, right? What he can do, but you're not really revering him himself. The thought of all that power may overwhelm you, but it doesn't change you inside. You're the same person as before. You just encountered someone else who is much more powerful than you. That's like being impressed with the awesomeness of the spiritual worlds, low reverence. You're impressed by what God can do, but not by God himself. A higher reverence, you start to feel the actual presence of God himself, the core godliness within the world. You're revering God for who he is and not for what he can do. Very powerful. Beautifully illustrated, right? Standing in front of a person who's very powerful, right? Very strong. So you're impressed. You're standing in fear or reverence of what he or she can do. And most times it doesn't change you. Why doesn't it change you? Why doesn't it change you? Versus somebody who's a holy man, for example, who is not about what he can do, but for what he is, he or she is. And just simply standing in the presence of somebody who is very holy touches you deeply. And it changes you, and it has the ability to change much more than somebody who is just physically strong or physically has powers. Because the same way I'm only impressed by what the potential of the abilities of the powerful man they can do. So it's an external factor, it's an external result of that powerful person. It also does, so it's only touching me externally, it's not touching me internally. When I'm standing in the presence of a holy person, I'm touched by the core who he is or who she is. It touches my core because I recognize the greatness of that person, of who they are. Inspires me to also change inside of me.
But that also says something about you or the person who's receptive versus the person who is not. So even the holy man can touch someone who is not receptive to that energy, so to speak.
Correct.
You feel that energy.
Correct.
So it takes two parties, really. It's like a magnetic force. There has to be that receptivity, or it's basically wasted.
Correct. Yes.
Anyway,
And like Bella said, the holy man's energy can touch somebody sometimes without the recipient have to do anything.
Exactly.
But it's
not absorbed. I think it's basically wasted if it's not absorbed.
Of course, and that's we're going back soon about our relationship and Hashem's relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hashem always touches us no matter what.
Mm.
But how much more awesome is if we can be more receptive to it.
Absolutely.
And we can open up our souls.
And that's
then do the meditation that takes us so much more deeper than just being a superficial reverence. Yeah, Hashem, I'm in your presence, I'm all yours. And that's where he's getting to. Let's continue. At higher reverence, you start to feel the actual presence of God himself. The core God is within the worlds. You're revering God for who he is and not for what he can do. Describe how the experience changes you. Higher reverence is also referred to here as reverence from a deep sense of shame. When you're in the presence of a holy man, you begin to question your own inner worth. If another person can be that holy, that refined, what does it say about you? You begin to feel that by this standard, your life's achievement are embarrassing. That is what a human being can rise to, and then you haven't even begun yet. Similarly, the experience of a higher reverence is one of losing your identity in the presence of God. You begin to vacate and transcend yourself. You connect with the reality of God, which leaves no room for any other separate existence. It is for this higher reverence that the sages said, if there's no wisdom, there is no reverence, which is the second part of it, right? First, we said if there's no reverence, there's no wisdom. That's the lower reverence. Here, we're talking about the higher reverence, which is a reverence of shame. Shame is not a bad thing. Shame here is a shame that empowers you. Let's come to recognize that what have I done? Look how much more I can be. It challenges your status, so to speak, and then also makes you feel not like you're nothing, but he's saying here, you lose your identity in the presence of God. And losing your identity in the presence of God is actually the beginning of transcending yourself. And that comes from the higher level of reverence. By the way, I want to throw in a little nugget here that's going to say later on the higher level of reverence and the higher level of love is really the level almost of a tzaddik, and God doesn't expect us to get there every time. So don't get afraid, okay? We will learn in Tanya that there's a difference between the tzaddik and the Beinoni. The Beinoni got to work on the first level really hard, and try sometimes to strive to get to a higher level. As you're going to say later in the chapter, that the higher level also is a gift. To really get to that level, in addition to your own inner transformation and work that you're going to work on yourself to elevate yourself, to transcend yourself, it's also a gift from Hashem, which is reserved to tzaddikim. So this is the question here. I want to read the practical lesson here on the side of the book, 551, the bowl. I always love these little snippets because you can take after the class and use these little snippets for your meditation and understanding more concise or just in a short few lines. So let's read it. Practical lessons. If your reverence is inspired by the fact that God is watching you, the fact that the physical world veils his presence, then you have achieved lower reverence from a constricted state of mind. If your reverence is inspired by the awesomeness of God as expressed in the spiritual worlds, you've achieved low reverence from an expanded state of mind. So higher reverence comes from an awareness not of the awesomeness of the spiritual world themselves, but of the core godness within the world. And we're still not yet explained how do we get there. And here, my friend, comes 552, and he asks the question, so how do I reach the state of higher reverence? Remember in chapter 41, 42, what was the key word? How do we get to the reverence? Which level? Das. Right? What was das? That is meditating.
Understanding. Knowledge.
Knowledge. Das is knowledge, to meditate, to make it part of you. But the knowledge about godliness was almost always talked about what do you call the restricted state of mind, the constricted state of mind, right? We are focused that Hashem is watching me. We are focused that Hashem is vested in the universe. It's not the higher level. It's not the higher level. It's the lower level of reverence. That's where Das brings me to, which is important. What's higher than Das? What's the highest level of intellect? Chachma. What is Chachma? What is
Wisdom.
Chachma?
Wisdom.
Yeah, but what's Das? That's also intellect, wisdom, it's all words in English. What is the difference?
It's also knowing, understanding.
It's a spiritual wisdom.
Das also spiritual wisdom. Das is the meditating on spirituality. So the word Chachma is the first level of any intellect.
Intellectual, yes.
Yeah, but what is it?
First emanation from God.
It's from education.
Emanation
Intellect
from
comes
God.
from education.
No,
No.
No?
no. That's
Well,
earthly.
we
Comes from above.
always learned in the beginning
From
of Tanya
Keter.
that this Keser transcends any intellect. We have what's called Chachma, is the first level, where when I want to develop an idea, right? I have to think about, I'm trying to start to think, my brain starts to think about an idea, and I come up with a grand idea. I want to build a house. I come up with a picture of the house. First thing is I have a certain idea or vision, what pops up in my mind. It's the total picture, it's the totality of the idea. But now I need to dwell onto the idea. So the first level, Chachma, is kind of the flash idea. All of a sudden I get something.
Yeah.
Right? Like similar, we're doing a little bit in Tanya now, right? We gave you a concept that's called expanded, what is it called? Constricted state of mind. But what does it mean? So it's called constrictus down in mind. That's the idea. Now let's take it apart. Let's take it apart. It means this, it means that. First level is get the full picture without knowing the details. It's the first level. Second level comes Bina. Bina means I get to take apart how many doors, how many windows, which color. And then when I develop the idea and I take it apart, now I focus on every detail, comes Das. Das is I connect with the idea, which connection of the idea brings the intellect into my emotions. Now I feel for the idea. Now I feel the reverence. Now within the highest level of Chachma, which is really one of the greatest gifts God gave humans, that we can come up with an idea, it's actually the power of creation. Because similar, like we have Chachma, we have Bina, we have Das. Why do we have the capacity? Because we were created in God's image. That's how God operates. So it says, when it came to the universe, it says, we say it in our prayers, Kulam b'chachma asisa. Hashem, you have created everything with your chachma. Right? And then we talk about Bina later in the Amida. Ata chaynen le'adam da'as. Ata in the second prayer of the Amida, right? We ask Hashem for wisdom. Sorry, the fourth prayer. The fourth prayer of the Amida is Ata chaynen le'adam das. Right? Ata really is Chachma, chaynen is Bina, and then Das. Baruch atah Hashem chaynen hadas. Bless you, Hashem, for giving us the ability to really to think and give us intellect, give us proper wisdom. So similar, Hashem created the world through Chachma. The word Chachma in Hebrew is a hybrid of two words. Koyach ma. There's four letters in Chachma. There's the Chaf and the Ches, which is Koyach. Koyach means strength or power, energy. Ma, the Hebrew word ma is like ma nishtana, means what? Ma means what? Koyach ma, wisdom, koyach ma is, you ask the question, what is the power? What is it? When I say what is it, is I'm creating something from that hasn't existed yet into an idea. So it's a creation of something out of nothing to something, out of something to something. It's like ex nihilo, from something to from nothingness to somethingness, which is going to explain now is how we ought to do the meditation when it comes to Hashem to get to a higher level of reverence. Again, remember, this is a little tzaddik. We're playing a little bit tzaddik maneuvers here. But let's look over here in 550. I'm sorry, 552.
552.
Yeah, 552 on top. How do you reach a state of higher reverence? The Mishnah indicates that it's through accessing your chachma, as the Tanya will now explain. Discussion draws from what we already learned about chachma in chapter 3, chapter 18, chapter 19. Since we learned above, the term chachma is the fusion of two Hebrew words, koyach, which is power, and ma, what? The Zohar, the power, the ability to say, what is this? Your chachma's identity is not centered around itself. It's predominantly an energy of an inquisitiveness and openness to the other, since it doesn't have a sharply defined self-identity. It's sufficiently open to recognize the true reality of God, the core godliness within the worlds, which leaves no room for any separate existence. Tanya now cites two sources, one from scripture and one from the Talmud, which hints at this quality of chachma. As scripture states, but chachma, from where me'ayin is it found? The word me'ayin literally means from where, but it can also be translated from nothing. Your natural tendency is to feel yourself as solid and taking up space, something. But when you access your chachma, your sense that your existence is fluid and intangible because it's really part of God. And the Talmud also hints to the transpersonal energy of chachma with the teaching, who is a wise person? One who sees the future outcome. Meaning that when you use your chachma, you see how everything in the universe is born and comes into being continually, something from nothingness. So normally a meditation is carried out using bina, the cognitive powers of understanding. But bina cannot get you to the higher reverence because it's too bound up with your ego and self-concept. It's not capable of appreciating the fluidity of your non-existence. Bina has too much of yourself involved because it works through tools of analysis that you're taking years to develop and have become bound up with your worldview. Chachma, on the other hand, doesn't analyze situations, it simply sees things the way they are using the mind's eye. So I'll stop here, but basically, and we're going to elaborate more next week. And this is really a powerful tool, understanding. You know, they say in Yiddish, say he's a chochem, right? Person's a chochem. Chochem is translated a wise person. But what's truly a wise person is somebody who could put away his ego. Most times, when a person becomes intellectual, right, so to speak, an intellectual, with the intellect, the ego grows as well. And the ego doesn't allow them to try to understand something that's beyond their perceived capacity or perceived ego. So when we learn, study about something, and you come in with your ego, you already filtered. You're filtering everything through your own perception. And you might learn certain things. You say, I'm going to only accept things that I really, really feel for it, or I have my views on it, and I will accept those versus other things. And I cannot listen to anybody else, and I can accept any other reality because this is how I think. So really, you're starting a level 2. You're starting a bina already. Bina is analytical, analyzing everything through your own lens. But you got to start. Chachma is coming to a place where I recognize there's something that can be greater than my existence. That can be greater than my perception. And I'm open to accept and learn something that is much, much greater. So what Chachma does, it nullifies me. I kind of close up, let's say, always in learning. You want to learn anything new, right? If you want to learn a language, you want to learn an alphabet, or want to learn something, the more you can become less of yourself and become a vessel to perceive a new idea, the more you'll grasp it, versus everything has to be channeled. When you listen to somebody, you're already filtering through your own filters. Put away your filters. Lower all the filters. Come kind of bare naked. Now you have to open yourself to something that's much greater. And that's really the power of Chachma. So similar, when it comes to our perception of Hashem, we have our own framework, right? What God is not, where God is, where he's busy, where I like him, where I don't like him, where I'm amazed about Hashem. It's all the lower level. It's all based on my own preconceived ideas and perception. Chachma challenges us to transcend ourselves, to empty our vessels, to be open to something that is that is much greater than ourselves, but not like accepting it at blind faith. Now I can say, wow, there's something that I have not been open to. Now I'm going to try to understand it because Hashem gives me a certain insight. And can I slowly learn about the greatness of Hashem, who Hashem is himself? That's really the whole teaching of Kabbalah and Chassidus, come to teach us how to learn not so much what Hashem can do, but what Hashem really is. It's actually interesting. I'll stop right here. It's interesting that the JLI last year, 2 years ago, did a course that we skipped the course. I thought it was a little bit too deep for the JLI students, not the Tanya students. And we put it out. Yeah. And it's not too late, we can do it. The course is called, the course is called What Is? Rethinking Everything We Know About Our Universe. And it goes through really what we're learning now in 6 classes, the profound teaching of Kabbalah and Hasidus, how it explains, just give you the subtitles so you understand. Is the world real? Right? We think the world is real and God is kind of like the player outside. Then there is time real? Is God real? Is evil real? Is the self real? Is choice real? So it all goes into that in that sequence, right? Universe, God, time, space, choices, freedom of choice, predetermination, all those things become, we start to rethink everything we live and we do, give us a much more of an idea really of not so much what Hashem does, but what Hashem is. And it starts really with the approach to first strip away what Hashem is not. Bella, your face is really
No, I was just reading about new course that JLI does. The history, is that the same one? 300-year history? I think Brendan started this class now.
It's book smart.
Oh, yeah,
No,
this one.
no.
It's
Books are
different?
different, yes, yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna
Are you giving GLI courses or not?
say again.
Are you giving GLI courses?
Of course, all his courses are from JLI.
Well, no, we used to give the JLI every year up
Yeah.
until during COVID, it was harder to give the JLI. I gave some I didn't do. And this year, the Hebrew School for Adults took away the JLI spot in the schedule. But there's a great, fascinating courses, and that I still subscribe to them, which means I pay a lot of money to get the material and study it, and I go through the training, which means I'm planning to give them when time comes around. So we're going to do the book smart. We're going to do there's one on dreams coming up, a 6-week course on dreams and astrology and all that stuff, which is a very attractive topic. So more to come. Learning never ends. It just the actual course, what is, it's a very difficult course. And I would do it maybe when we finished our Tanya, we can maybe do it together. Because the JLI, the ability to bring it together in a 6-week course with text and PowerPoints, it will maybe be a good synopsis of what we're learning the end of this volume. And Bella asked, what's the next volume? Really, the next volume goes into this topic on a much more detailed journey.
Okay.
The previous Rebbe's father, the 5th Rebbe Chabad, who lived in Russia, in Lubavitch, and then died in Rostov. He died at age 59. I have, I don't know if you can see in my collection here. Let me unblur my. This is my little private book collection here, and so. If you see the red ones is about 10 years of a 10-year discourse, almost every week continue the discourse on Hashem himself, on the wisdom of Hashem. Basically taking all the Tanyas we learned and elaborated in much longer. We learn in the Yeshiva for it's You can look it up in our classes online. You can look it up. You can, if you're interested to learn more about it or just what it's about. Check out. If you Google the Rebbe Reshab, Reshab is spelled R-E-S-H-A-B, who is Shalom Dobesh Nisnu, I'm named after. And then put in the word Samech Vav. Samech Vav, which stands for the two Hebrew letters Samech and a Vav, which stands for the year 5,666, which is about 100 years ago, 120 years ago, when he elaborated on these ideas for 1 year, just on this chapter itself. Yeah. Anyways, a lot more to learn.
So much.
Yeah. This is the coolest class in Chabad. You guys are the advanced students of Tanya. This stuff we learn here in details is stuff that it's already in higher learning in the yeshivas and so on. Typically, people don't have the attention span. They want the quick fix. But this is just the enrichment of understanding and learning. So I'm thrilled to continue this class. Looking forward, and I hope Ina, you followed a bit along. All righty, wishing everyone a beautiful week.
I did. Thank you.
Wonderful. To mention there is a yard site coming up with the previous Rebbe on Wednesday. Is the 10th of Shvat, so we commemorate. We're going to have a Farbrengen in Shul Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock. Maybe we'll jump on Zoom to talk about the previous Rebbe's teachings and how the Rebbe became Rebbe on that day in 1951. So look out for the email or WhatsApp, 8 o'clock on Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday?
Yeah.
AM or PM?
Tomorrow?
Huh?
AM, PM?
Yeah.
8 p.m. with lots of wine.
PM. Yeah. Well, another AM. Not the early risers.
8 p.m. Yes. All righty. Have everyone a blessed week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.